Meanwhile, hi, this is Seb.
And this is Marcus. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to another episode of Meanwhile. And today we are discussing Lord of the Rings, Ring of Power, Episode 4, The Great Wave. Right,
Boom.
right off the bat, Seb, what did you think of the episode?
I really enjoyed it. I can't lie. I think the last two episodes I've really enjoyed, episode 3 and 4. I think mainly because, for me, episode 1 and 2 was still very much like the world building, getting you used to the characters and whatnot. Now, I know, Marcus, you said in our last video that you're not really happy with how the show is going, so I'm very interested in hearing what your thoughts are. But for me, I think 3 and 4 have been really good. Okay, maybe not really good, but enjoyable at least. And episode 4, for me, visually was really nice. I think all the scenes of the orcs and the elves trying to escape have just been great. I think it looks so good. It looks like the orcs and the practical kind of set and stuff just looks great. I think Numenor again, the storyline was it's getting interesting for sure, especially with the Armageddon coming, the Great Wave coming. The dwarf storyline is getting good as well, with them discovering Mithril, which
That
is
was a
pretty
nice
cool.
touch. That was nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I genuinely just enjoyed that episode a lot. I think it's catching up. It's definitely not amazing yet, but I'm enjoying it. The characters, the stories, the visuals aren't amazing, but it's not bad. So for me, it's pass, but it's getting edging more towards good for me. What about you, Marcus? What are your thoughts on episode 4?
I think the show is picking up, you're right. I think this episode is the first time we've actually seen a lot more happen. It kind of took away from world building and actually started to engage like the main plot. I think the fact that it's taken 4 episodes to get to this point irks me a bit, but in saying that, I'm going to be a lot less negative than I was in the last review, because I think this episode was a lot more enjoyable. And I have to say, like, my favorite part of the story at the moment is the dwarf segments. I think those are actually really well written. By really well, I just mean like they're written well enough. I think the exchanges between Doran and Elrond are enjoyable. I think Disa's great. And like again, I think the added touch of Mithril was really nice.
Yeah.
And I'm really intrigued to see what the dwarves are building with Celebrimbor. I know it's like, I guess it's the great furnace
Forge that's gonna make
the great
rings,
forge.
probably.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was really interesting to see kind of more of Halbrand, and I think you have an idea of kind of like his intent now. I think his intent is it's on the bad side of things, I would say. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he's Sauron, or he's like the Witch King, but I personally think he's kind of more just an agent of Sauron, much less so.
I don't know. I don't really. It's hard for me to kind of read yet. I feel like people. I don't know. For me personally, I don't think it's that clear yet. But I feel like people may be slightly reading into it too much.
Fair.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's too early for me to say for certain if he's going to be a bad guy or a good guy or Sauron's side or whatever. I mean, what did he do in this episode?
Well, to be a little nitpicky, he was actually kind of like...
Oh, was he stealing the guild thing?
No, that was the
Was that
last
this
episode.
episode?
That was the last episode.
What the hell did he
So
do this
basically, this episode, he was in the brig. Like, he got locked up for the fight in the last episode. And then, Galadriel kind of being a bit uncharacteristic again, like just lost her kind of nerve with the queen, and, gets herself thrown in the brig. And then, in a bit of a cartoonish scene, they try to escort her out to the boat, and then she just like throws 3 guards in the cell, and then Pharazôn is about to like confront her, and then Halbrand just kind of whispers to him like, "Oh no, stop, let her go," and then Pharazôn's just like, "Okay, I'll let her go," and you're just
Oh, yeah.
and I think, in my opinion, I think Halbrand speaks to Pharazôn and says, this is actually the perfect moment for you to actually cement your power in Numenor.
Pharazôn's definitely up to something for sure.
Well, he becomes the ruler of Numenor, does he not?
Oh, really? Fair, I didn't know.
Because I think that the Queen is obviously going to war now in Middle-earth and help the Southlands, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, but we all know how that's going to turn out, though.
Yeah, it turns out terribly. I've seen, I think Numenor is going to be a really interesting aspect of the show because it's something we've never got in any depiction of Tolkien lore to the screen.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of intrigued to see where that goes. I wouldn't say I'm excited. I'm just intrigued to see how they handle that. There's kind of a bit of a bit of almost Game of Thrones-esque stuff happening in Numenor with Pharazôn, which will be interesting to see. And I think for me the weakest part of everything at the moment, ex Harfoots, because they're not in this episode. That's probably why it was a good episode. Is the men. I'm just not interested in the men of the Southlands. Yeah. I'm just not interested in the men of the Southlands.
And her kid Theo.
Oh yeah, Theo's annoying. I did see some fan speculation saying that Theo would actually go to the Northlands, and then he could potentially be related to Theodred, and then thus, and I was just like, come on, guys, you're reaching.
Just because his name's Theo.
Just because his name is Theo. I just think Bronwyn and all of that is kind of the weak bit for me.
I kind of agree.
Not interesting.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the Men of the South for me is the weakest point. I know you really don't like the Harfoots, but at least for me, the Harfoots, there is the stranger involved, so I am still intrigued as to who the stranger is. Whereas the Men of the South, Bronwyn and Theo, are just slightly annoying for me. I mean, I feel like Bronwyn, I don't know, she's just I think it's always great to have a strong female character, right? And I think that's strongly what was needed in Lord of the Rings for sure. Yes, we had Arwen, and yes, we had Éowyn in the original trilogy, but obviously the more the merrier. But with her, Bronwyn, it feels a little forced. Bronwyn just feels a little like she's out of her depth, if you get me.
It's a bit like, why are you here?
Yeah, and then when she runs in to find Arundel in the forest to save her kid, and she runs in and she got the axe and stuff, I'm like, let's be real, you guys are so dead.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the big, not big irks I had with this episode, but when Arundel saves Theo and they're running through the forest, firstly, beautifully shot. I think I loved seeing Arundel do. Quick side note, I think Arundel is one of my favorite characters simply because he's actually doing elf-like things. He's the only elf for me that feels like an elf. Everyone else feels like a human with pointy ears, whereas he's doing flips, catching arrows. That was sick. But again, realistically, there's 40 orcs and 3 of them. And they all miss, and they've all got stormtrooper aim. And
that whole scene was convenient, and the fact that they came out and the sun came up as well. I agree, it was shot beautifully, and I think it was really cool to see Arondir kind of channel his Legolas vibe.
Yeah, he felt like a Legolas.
Because at the moment, he feels like the elf character, the only true elf depiction in the show, and I would say Elrond very much fits that for me as well. Because he's being majestic and being witty with his talk. I think that scene with Arondir was well shot, but I think it was really conveniently written. And prior to that, the whole escape video game level scene with Theo kind of bugged me, because I sat
when
there
he was hiding in the
and I was like, look, there are 40 orcs about, and you really expect me to believe that no one heard you came out the well? Because you literally came out the well and you were like, and no one smelt you. Well. No one smelt you. They even had that scene where the orc smelt him, and then conveniently another orc was like, "This way, maggot." It was just a bit convenient for my taste.
For sure. I think this show does suffer a little bit from
convenient
writing in that regard. I think, interestingly enough, I feel like the lines that they develop are really good, because obviously I feel like writing for the story, the script, the plot writing is different from the line writing, right? And I think the line writing has been pretty good. There have been some really good lines, especially between, like you said, Elrond and Durin, when Durin says, "Dwarvish anger will outlive elvish memory," or when I think it's Elendil with his son saying, "Oh, I don't need cleverness. I prefer if you were wise." Stuff like that. There's lots of good lines. It's just that I feel like the beats, the story beats, the plot points are slightly convenient at times for sure. So
Yeah,
I
well,
I
it's
agree
like
with
that scene in Númenor when, like, the mage or the smithy is kind of like, his whole speech felt really poor to me. Like, it felt really poorly written. When the mage is kind of like giving his kind of like protest speech, like, "Oh, the queen is an elf lover, an elf has come, and now the elves are going to come take our jobs." That to me, I understood why it needed to be in the plot, because Pharazôn, in my opinion, actually planted him and made him like do this speech to kind of like, show that Pharazôn was a man of the people. But I felt that whole kind of elf lover speech was really poorly written. I thought the dialogue didn't belong in the world of Tolkien.
Fair.
But I agree with you
Good point.
in every other aspect, where there are these really well written lines that pop up once in a while that feel like they were almost, taken out of something like the Silmarillion or like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. But I feel, because the show writes, obviously they don't have like, Lord of the Rings to pull from or The Hobbit to pull from, direct lines of dialogue. That at times you can tell that they don't, because the writing kind of falls back on this, in my opinion, like just generic show writing.
Fair. Yeah, and to be fair, I think you make a very good point with it being slightly generic. I know that's one of your main gripes, and there is a lot of that which I agree with, to be fair. It does feel like we're not getting anything new per se yet. Am I intrigued by Adar? Yes, for sure. Am I intrigued to where the story goes? But overall, it isn't offering me anything new. It isn't offering me anything too exciting as of yet. But I'm still, unlike you, well, I'm not sure about you now, but I'm still pretty positive about the show. I feel like it is getting better. My hopes are getting higher. I think the show, there's definitely a lot of blemishes still. It's not perfect. I think even visually, although episode 3 and 4 looked better, because I think we're seeing a lot more practical sets as opposed to just full CG. But I feel like Númenor, whenever you get like the massive crowds and stuff, it feels too clean. It feels non-lived in.
Yeah.
And and sometimes that takes me out of the scene a little bit. It feels like, they're fresh out of a wardrobe department. But that's just me maybe perhaps nitpicking a little bit, which I think, again, goes to show how amazing the original Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies were, because everything felt lived in. And I guess, it does suspend your disbelief a little bit with the fact that it looks legit, whereas now it looks like an Amazon show.
Yeah.
But that's really all my thoughts, to be fair, on episode 4. I'm excited to see, how the Great Wave is going to come about, because we see the petals are falling.
Yeah. Very significant.
Something's happening. Yeah, and the fact that now Númenor is joining Galadriel with their expedition force. Isildur is joining, and his friend. If I were Isildur's friends, by the way, I'd be pissed off. I'd be so pissed off.
I'd be so pissed
off.
Thus far, Isildur is just kind of like...
yeah, what? Actually...
What is this
what is that? Yeah.
What's with the West Númenor part?
What is that?
We haven't been there yet.
Yeah,
I'm intrigued. By that. I think you've hit an interesting point. Is the show represents a lot of potential, and there's going to be 5 seasons of this, and I think if we get this first season, and if we kind of carry on this trajectory, because I think the next episode will feature like potentially the first big battle, because obviously like Adar is going to come for his this Morgul artifact. If the show carries on in this trajectory, like, and for example, we end up with a season overall that's okay, the show writers still have 4 seasons to kind of,
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah, for sure. I think like it's for me it's not winning any awards. It's not like any achievement so far.
It's not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, it's not reinventing a great analogy. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not offering anything new just yet. Visually, sometimes it looks really good, sometimes it looks meh. But yeah, I think for me it's a pass at least. And so far, episode 4 what has been, in my opinion, the best episode.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm
episode 4 is the first episode that's actually kind of passed for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I'm still not into the show, but like it's a passable episode. But hey, man, I'm going to keep an open mind, and I'm going to like keep watching this, and I want the show to be amazing. I want it to crush it.
But yeah, that's pretty much our thoughts on episode 4, The Great Wave. Please leave in the comments what you thought of this episode. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let us know. Marcus, do the outro.
Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button or dislike button. That's fine with us. Or hit the notification button so you don't miss out on any of our content, because we react to all sorts of stuff, discuss all sorts of stuff. We're nerds. What can we say? We will catch you later. I have been Marcus.
And I've been Seth. Peace.